Stocks take a dive following a sell-off in the US equities overnight as macro concerns rise. Metals, auto as well as real estate are the biggest draggers today. Mid-caps fare better.
Tata Motors tops expectations on CVs and the JLR business, but passenger vehicles are a drag and the outlook for domestic sales remains muted. The stock is the top Nifty loser even as analysts remain upbeat on the medium-term outlook. The board has also approved the split of the CV and the passenger vehicles business.
Zomato fires on all cylinders with strong profitable growth in food delivery. Faster ramp-up of Blinkit with an eye on profitability and the planned launch of a going-out app district.
And Ola Electric has launched over 6,000 crore IPO comprising a fresh offer of 5,500 crores and an offer for sale that will see the founders and key investors trim their holdings. Growth, sustainability and profitability remain the key questions in the minds of the investors.
Hello and welcome. You've tuned into Business Lunch on this Friday afternoon. As always, it's Nisha and Hormaz bringing you all the latest updates for the day. Now, taking a look at the market, Hormaz, it's the global phenomena and our market is also seeing weakness. And I must point out that HDFC Bank's strong performance is a contra to the market, and still it's not impacting the market and Nifty 50 enough to really perk up. So almost 1% down on Nifty 50 at this particular moment, 24,780 odd levels. Sensex too losing over 700 points, and Bank Nifty is outperforming the key indices with slight losses of 0.2% loss. Now mid-caps, they also have been taking the brunt, 0.7% down in trade at the moment, and also the broader market really being on the weaker side is impacting the overall strength of the market, and therefore the advanced decline ratio in favor higher on the declining side. But some of the counters, HDFC Bank doing very well today, Nestle India, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Shriram Finance, these are some of the contra stocks which are gaining in trade, but largely it is the autos as well as the metals which are the draggers on Nifty 50. Hormaz.
You know, it could have been far worse had it not been for HDFC Bank, but it's still not looking any pretty picture either, even if it is for the outperformance that HDFC Bank is doing. 24,775 now on the index. We are down for the week now. There's 24,834 is the level on the Nifty that it needs to cross to have a 9th straight weekly gain, does the index. Now it's trading around 60 points lower than that. We'll see if there is some bit of recovery in the last hour of trade. What's not doing well though, L&T, Reliance, TCS, all the index heavyweights offsetting the outperformance from HDFC Bank. The real estate stocks continue to take a beating, and as do the metal names. So the top 3 losers on the Nifty are auto names, Eicher, Maruti and Tata Motors, and the next 3 losers on the Nifty are metal names, Tata Steel, JSW Steel and Hindalco. But since we were on the subject of auto stocks, we'll begin the show by focusing on Tata Motors, and the stock is trading lower on the back of its quarterly results, although the numbers were a beat on street expectations. Sonia is here with more details.
Thanks a lot for that. So 2 reasons why Tata Motors is under pressure. One of them is that the stock has rallied significantly in this year. So there is some amount of profit taking that we're seeing. And the other one is that the management commentary was a bit cautious in, post the results, and hence the forward-looking statements are something that has spooked the street. But the quarter was good actually. So it was, better than what the street was estimating. The guidance that JLR has given, has been retained. However, the management commentary has been a bit cautious. They've spoken about how there are demand headwinds in China, demand headwinds in Europe. The customer acquisition cost is on the higher side as well. And if you look at the consolidated numbers, the revenue growth of 6% is what we have seen. EBITDA has gone up 19%. Margins are up 170 basis points and the profits are up 74%. If you look at the brokerage views as well, right? Jefferies has retained a buy. They have a target price of 1,330. They've raised their target price, while Nomura has revised the target price higher to 1,303. Back to you.
All right, Sonia, thanks so much for getting us all those details on Tata Motors. But the next stock on our radar is Zomato, and that zooms after delivering a good quarter, and the brokerages also issue bullish calls on this particular counter. And Mangala Malu joins in to tell us what is really fueling the stock and how the performance has been lately. Tell us, Mangala.
Well, stock of the day and stock of the last couple of years. What's interesting is that Zomato has moved around 40 rupees in today's trading session to zoom to a record high. And it's a far way off from July 2022 when the stock itself was 40 rupees. So 278 was today's high on the stock itself. A massive 7 times move since its decline to a low of 40. What has actually done well for Zomato over the last few years? One, there has been improvement in food delivery and their operating metrics itself. Secondly, most importantly, the strong growth that we've seen in Blinkit along with operational improvement and the management guiding for further growth out there as well. Third, improvement in market share versus Swiggy over the last couple of years. We've had data telling you that Zomato has actually gained a lot more market share than Swiggy. And fourth, finally, they've been seeding new verticals of growth as well. So let's take a look at each of them in itself. First, improvement in the food delivery business. The benefit of operating leverage really kicking in. First quarter FY24, the food delivery EBITDA was close to around 181 crores, with platform fees being introduced and a lot of other cost-cutting measures that the company has taken with revenue growth. Food delivery EBITDA zoomed all the way up to close to around 300 plus crores. Blinkit as well. It's grown at a compounded rate of over 100% on a gross order value basis. And despite this expansion and the investment in the expansion, the EBITDA on Blinkit is actually just minus 3 crores as against, about 133 crores what it was same time last year. So that's a positive. And finally, we're talking about Blinkit taking market share away from e-commerce deliveries and products like tech gadgets, sports, etc. on the platforms too. With all of this, the cash on their books also has jumped by about 1,000 crores in the last 4 quarters. What this has done is that the company's had an annualized profitability of close to around 1,200 crores. And Blinkit itself is valued at 20 times more than what Zomato paid for it in 2022. So that really has been the growth driver. As Deepinder Goyal had earlier said, that Blinkit would drive more value for shareholders in the next 10 years than Zomato. And now they've gone ahead and revised the guidance to 1,000 stores by March 2025 to 2,000 by 2026 with profitability as well. Additionally, now the street is very excited about the prospects in their going out business. The company says the use case in the going out business has increased to movies, sports ticketing, live performance, shopping, staycations, etc. And their new app, which is District, will cater to this going out business. A claim by the management suggests that going out will be the third largest B2C business emerging out of Zomato. Remember, the company has earlier confirmed being in talks with Paytm to buy their ticketing business. So this is something that the street will be eyeing, especially given the sort of rise that we've seen on Blinkit itself. And brokerages understandably have increased their estimates and targets on the stock. CLSA has increased their earnings estimates by 6 to 36%. And it really has been summed up well by Motilal Oswal, who says that Blinkit defies attempts for them to value the stock fairly, even as food delivery business is stable and medium-term visibility is strong. Zomato, a 7 times move here was the journey.
Mangalam, thanks a lot for that. Well, 7x from an all-time low in just 2 years for Zomato. At the highest point of the day, it was around 280 rupees. The market cap also for Zomato now nearing 2.5 lakh crore. Well, moving on then, the Reserve Bank of India's decision to increase the liquidity coverage ratio for banks has seen an impact on them. Now, earlier we spoke to Amitabh Chaudhary, the MD and CEO of Axis Bank, to discuss this issue. Listen into what he had to say.
LCR move is going to take an excess demand for HQLA of 4 to 5 lakh crores. And frankly, if you just do the maths, the number could be obviously much higher, close to 7 lakh crores. But, one is assuming that people or the banks will dip into their excess HQLA and only buy as much as what might be necessary. If banks absorb everything, it will mean obviously an impact on margins for all the banks, anywhere between 5 to 15 basis points. And this is also assuming RBI will do exactly what they have said in the draft circular. On the flip side, banks, could decide to pass on some of this impact to the customers, either in form of higher charges or in the form of higher rates. But we have been maintaining our LCR around 120% forever, including during the COVID period.
All right, Amitabh Chaudhary of Axis Bank also discussed the bank's performance this particular quarter and also the outlook on RBI's interest rate decision. Listen in.
the credit growth can't be running way ahead of deposit growth. And again, we have been saying that that number will be most likely close to 13% for this financial year. So we have maintained that stance, I think, quite consistently. We have also said, as Axis Bank, that we believe in the medium term, we can grow our advances at the rate of 300 to 500 basis points higher than the industry. Now, that is medium term, but it's not for this year. Obviously, it is not possible unless our deposit growth also is in line with that advances growth. I mean, because of all the things which I've said, it is obvious that we are in a way saying that the deposit growth would be similar. Our view, and I think a view which we've held quite steadfast over the last 12 months or so, is that I think the rates in India will remain high for longer. I'm not saying they'll go higher, but they will remain high for longer, because the drivers for India, apart from what's happening globally, also is that, we need to continue to tame down inflation. We're still not at the 4% target. Will India immediately react and do something here? I think RBI will take stock of the whole situation and move quite deliberately, but not in a hurry whatsoever. So my view is rates will continue to remain high for longer.
Amitabh Chaudhary there of Axis Bank. We just spoke about Zomato. That's the stock that's leading the charge on the upside. But the one that is leading the charge on the downside today is Cummins India. And that is declining on the back of negative commentary coming in from the company's global parent. Vamakshi is joining in with the details. Vamakshi, what did the global parent have to say?
Well, absolutely, Hormaz. The Cummins is dealing under pressure today after commentary that came through from its global parent. And in the con call, the company said that Q2, which is the quarter ended June, revenues in India, including its JV, amounted to $649 million, which is a decline of almost 10% on a YOY basis. They further added that power generation's revenue decreased by almost 17% YOY as the base quarter benefited from pre-buy demand ahead of emissions regulation changes. In India for 2024, the total revenue, which includes the JVs, could grow by almost 8%. But how do we look at it? Cummins has 7 entities in India, which includes 3 JVs, out of which Cummins India is the only listed entity. So the numbers that the global parent mentioned in its con call includes all of these entities and not just Cummins India on a standalone basis. The decline in power gen revenues that the global parent has mentioned, however, is a bit worrisome. We also have a note coming in from Macquarie, and they have highlighted that they estimate Cummins India to account for nearly 1/3 of Cummins Group's India's revenue. However, they have highlighted that it is difficult to draw a direct correlation to Cummins India's power gen business given presence of other group entities in India. They acknowledge that it does present a downside skew to the second quarter power gen segmental growth estimate of nearly 12% for Cummins India. So overall, right now it looks like a knee-jerk reaction for Cummins India.
All right, knee-jerk reaction. Thanks, Vamakshi, for giving us all the details which is impacting and also ailing Cummins India's stock today down over 7%. With that, we'll slip into a short breather on Business Lunch, but we'll get you more news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned to Business Lunch.
Back with us here on Business Lunch. Now, sources are telling CNBC-TV18 that the government is bracing for a lower mop-up under the small savings and is hinting that the Mahila Samman savings scheme will not be extended beyond March of 2025. Sapna Das is now joining us to tell us more. Sapna, what are you picking up?
Well, exactly as you are indicating, basically the expectation at the government end is that the small savings mop-up is likely to start tapering from the current financial year onwards. And if you look at the kind of budget estimates that they have kept, this year's budget estimate at 4.20 lakh odd crores is 50,000 crores lower than last year's budget estimate and around 70,000 crores lower than last year's revised estimates, because last year also the government was not able to meet the small savings target. They missed it by around 20,000 crores. Now the government's takeaway here is very clear that probably over the last few months in particular, they're seeing a significant trend of savers and investors moving towards equities and mutual funds. So, from this line, probably what we are given to understand is that maybe the government is all right with this kind of trend. And they seem to have kind of, accepted the fact that, yes, small savings mop-up is going to taper from this year onwards, and that's why the budget number has been kept lower to that extent. Having said that, there is also an indication that some of the schemes that have done extremely well, for example, if you look at the small savings scheme for the senior citizens, that mopped up over 1,10,000 crores in one financial year, that was FY24. Government is not expecting a repeat performance on that scheme in the current year. Also, the Mahila Saman savings scheme, this is going to sunset naturally March 2025. It has a 2-year period in terms of the coupon locked at 7.5%. Now, the fear here is that if the interest rates start falling, then the government will be exposed to an interest rate risk which they don't want to take. So here also the indication is very clear that beyond March 2025, government will not be looking at extension. So overall, maybe they are, they've come around to the fact that yes, savers and investors are moving towards the markets and mutual funds, which may be all right, and accordingly, small savings collections from here onwards are likely to start tapering off. This is the beginning in the current financial year. Coming years may actually make this trend even clearer.
All right. Thanks so much, Sapna, for getting us that information. Now, we learn from sources that Reliance Capital's Committee of Creditors sends notices of default to Indocent International Holdings. In fact, Ritu is getting us all those details. Tell us, Ritu.
Well, we may just see the lenders reopen the bidding process for Reliance Capital or take other action against Hindujas for failing to comply with NCLT's directions on depositing money for the acquisition of Reliance Capital. Now, we've been given to understand from sources that the Committee of Creditors for Reliance Capital has issued a notice of default to IIHL, which is the Hinduja-led company, for not meeting the deadlines set by a July 23rd NCLT order, which had directed IIHL to deposit 2,750 crores as the equity component of their total offer in an escrow account by 31st July, which is already passed, and to also submit to the monitoring committee copies of the binding executed term sheet for the loan amount of the remaining sum, which is 7,300 crore rupees, to complete the acquisition process by the 10th of August. However, Hindujas, as we've been reporting, had subsequently moved the court to seek modifications in this order, stating that there were several pending conditions that would have to be met before they could deposit this money. Now, while the court is yet to rule on Hinduja's plea, the lenders have now issued this letter to them as a warning that the rights and remedies of the COC are reserved in view of the default, and these remedies, according to our banking sources, could include, like I said, restarting the bidding process or cancelling the letter of intent which was issued to IIHL, among others. So we'll have to see how this moves forward now, but a delay looks inevitable, and in the worst case, perhaps the entire process of sale for Reliance Capital may have to be restarted.
Ritu, thanks a lot for that. And time for a short break here on Business Lunch. Up next, rescue operations continue in Wayanad while heavy rains continue to lash the northern parts of the country. We get you more on this after the short break. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch, and on to straight to the updates from the landslide-stricken district in Kerala. And the Indian Army has completed the construction of the 190 feet long bridge that will connect the worst affected areas in Wayanad district, and the death toll crosses 300 in the landslides, even as rescue efforts continue. Now, nearly 200 people are still reported missing. The Chief Minister of Kerala says that the numbers could go even higher. And earlier, the leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, visited the worst affected areas of the landslide and has promised support for those affected. Meanwhile, the IMD has predicted heavy rains for another 2 days in the affected district.
And from the south of the country to the north now, heavy rains continue to lash Himachal Pradesh. The weather department has forecast moderate rainfall across the state today after at least 5 people were killed and about 50 went missing following several incidents of cloudbursts on Thursday. Heavy rainfall washed away many houses, bridges and roads. Now, officials said that the cloudbursts took place in several areas across Kullu, Mandi and Shimla districts. Meanwhile, the Indian Army has joined the NDRF in the search and rescue operations.
All right, let's take it straight to some of the sporting events and updates coming in from Paris Olympics. And 28-year-old Swapnil Kusale bagged India's third medal by clinching the first ever Olympic bronze in the 50-meter rifle shooting finals. An Indian men's hockey team, having already secured, remember, their quarterfinal spot, lost against Belgium, and they will take on Australia today in the final league match. It was a heartbreak for star shuttler PV Sindhu, who lost to China and crashed out of the Paris Olympics. Meanwhile, Manu Bhaker, who won 2 bronze medals at the Paris Olympics, will compete in the women's 25-meter pistol qualification today. And rising shuttler Lakshya Sen will battle it out at the singles quarterfinals later in the day. So that's all the action coming in from Olympics being held in Paris.
Well, let me end with some good news then. The numbers are out and it is final. India watched Budget 2024 with CNBC-TV18. Now, CNBC-TV18's dominance continues as it knocks out the competition on Budget Day. CNBC-TV18 is the clear number one with 91.2% viewership during the Budget Day.
Yes, in fact, Hormaz, continuing its 25 years of leadership is what we are stating. And CNBC-TV18 wins another gold on Budget Day. Thank you, viewers, for your consistent patronage, trust, and continued support from the entire team. Thanks again. And it's a wrap on Business Lunch.